Can we perform miracles? We know of the great miracles of the Bible, the splitting of the sea, which, by the way, is what Jews around the world are reading in synagogues this week in the Torah portion. It's the story of, we're at the moment where this 210-year slavery culminates in eventually Moses comes, they have the 10 plagues, and Pharaoh eventually lets the Jews go, and then they get to the sea, and then Pharaoh changes his mind, and they come running after the Jews, and the Jews don't know what to do. There's a sea in front of them, there's desert on either side with snakes and scorpions, and behind them are the Egyptians. What are they going to do? And then the sea splits, and it's possibly the most famous redemptive miracle that the world knows about, and it's the birth of the Jewish people. By the way, it's no accident we sort of go through this canal of water. It's in many ways compared to the canal of birth and a woman's waters breaking, because this was the national birth of the Jewish people. But what I wanted to share with you is that there's this video we did on JTV a few years ago. In fact, it was one of our first animated videos, and it was really, really popular. And I felt that I wanted to dig it up again and share it with you, because it was all about, just as we know about the splitting of the sea, can we human beings perform our own miracles? And there's a beautiful Torah Jewish idea that we can indeed perform great miracles too, but not in the way you'd expect. And I know what you're thinking, Ollie, what are you talking about? We can't subvert nature. What do you mean? Well, actually, we can subvert nature, just not in the way you might expect. Enjoy.
There's a Jewish principle that whenever a unique word is repeated in the Torah, it means there is a connection between the two events. One of the most interesting places in the Bible where this principle occurs is in the story of the splitting of the sea. Imagine for a moment you were there with the Jewish people at the moment when the sea split in front of them. Imagine the Egyptians were chasing after you and the sea is in front of you and there's literally nowhere to run. And at the moment where all seems lost, the sea suddenly splits before your eyes. What kind of reaction do you think you'd have? I mean, you probably would just be like, wow. After all, this is considered to be one of the greatest miracles recorded in the Bible. But have you ever actually asked yourself, what is it that constitutes a miracle? What makes something miraculous for us? For us, something miraculous, something incredible, is when nature does something very unusual, when physical nature doesn't follow its nature. That is a miracle in our eyes. Now, hold that thought for a moment and have a look at this. It says something very interesting about the splitting of the sea in Psalms, something which we recite in the Hallel prayer. In describing the sea splitting, it says that the sea saw and fled, vayanos. Now that's a rather peculiar way of describing the event. What does it mean that the sea fled? Well, you know, there actually happens to be one other place in the entire Bible where this word fled, vayanos, appears. It's in the story of Joseph. When Joseph was sent down to Egypt by his brothers, he became a slave for the aristocrat Potiphar. And Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him. Now, one thing you need to know about Joseph is that he was a very, very good-looking guy. The Torah commentaries say he was actually so good-looking that women would throw their jewelry at him just so he would look at them. I mean, personally, I actually can kind of relate to this a little bit, but that's not the point. So one day, the house was empty, and Potiphar's wife was putting immense pressure on Joseph to have an affair with her. The temptation to give in was reaching a boiling point, and the verse says, she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me," and she gets right to the point. And he left his garment in her hand and fled, vayanos, and went outside. Again, we have this word, vayanos. Joseph fled. So why is the splitting sea described as fleeing the same way Joseph is described as fleeing? What's the connection? Well, we explained before that in our eyes a miracle occurs when physical nature doesn't follow its nature. But have you ever considered what makes something miraculous in the eyes of God? What makes something miraculous in the eyes of heaven? What makes God say, wow, that is awesome? The manipulation of nature is not really impressive for God. That's easy business for him. In the eyes of heaven, a miracle isn't when physical nature goes against its nature. It's when human beings go against their nature. And that is exactly what Joseph did. Just as the sea fled, going against its normative physical nature and creating a miracle, so too, when Joseph fled from Potiphar's wife, he went against his nature and created a human miracle. When God sees a person overcoming his negative urges, which is in his nature, now that's impressive. In fact, the Talmud says you should have seen the commotion in heaven when Joseph did what he did. Every time we choose to fight being lazy, getting angry, or succumbing to our desires, and overcome these natural inclinations, we perform a miracle. Every time we push ourselves and choose to overcome what is easy and do what is right, that is a miracle in spiritual terms. Every time we choose to be loyal to our friends, rather than to climb that social ladder, or to give that little bit extra to charity, or whatever it is, we go against the natural order of doing what's easiest. And that is a pretty rare thing. What does it mean when it says that the sea saw and fled? What did it see? The Talmud says that the sea metaphorically saw the coffin of Joseph being held as they were all standing at the sea. And the sea, so to speak, remembered how Joseph fled from Potiphar's wife. And in the merit of one of the greatest human miracles performed by Joseph, God responded by performing one of the most supernatural miracles ever, splitting the sea. You know, the word for a miracle in Hebrew is a nes, and the Hebrew word for a moral challenge is nisayon. It derives from the same root because the concept is the same. A miracle is about embracing a challenge and going against our nature. The Talmud asks, who is strong? The answer is powerful. He who overcomes his desires. The real test of strength and character isn't found in the gym, it's found in the arena of human choices.
Just quickly, we've all heard of heaven, hell, and the afterlife, and at some point I'm sure you've given it some thought. But the Jewish view is radically different from almost everything you've been taught, and once you hear it, it will change how you understand life itself. Have a watch of the trailer for our new JTV Plus documentary called Heaven, Hell, and the Afterlife, and you can watch the full film right now by clicking the link below in the video description. Across the world, the afterlife is described in simple terms. Heaven above, hell below, the devil waiting to tempt you, and a humanity born in original sin. But Judaism tells a story that is older, deeper, and far more hopeful. Less obsessed with fear and more rooted in purpose. A story where the soul is not born guilty, but born noble. Where the body is not the enemy, but the partner. Where the devil isn't God's rival, but his assistant, because Judaism has no second power. Where hell exists, but not forever. Where heaven exists, but not as the final destination. And where the real end of the human story is resurrection, not escape. Judaism views history as a mission, not a mistake. Other civilizations teach that we are here to earn our way into heaven. Judaism teaches that we are here to bring heaven down to earth. And to understand what happens after we die, we first have to understand why we're here in the first place. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to reveal the Jewish vision of life after death. One of the most misunderstood ideas, but if understood correctly, can transform your very understanding of life itself. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.